The long silence for 5,000 years. The galaxy lived without the sound of human voices. Alien empires rose, fought, and fell in endless cycles. But Earth and her people stayed quiet, hidden, and unseen. To many, humanity was only a rumor. An old story told by ancient records that no one trusted anymore. They were called the Silent Ones, a forgotten race, maybe extinct, maybe only legend. But whispers still lingered among the elder races, whispers that spoke of wars long ago, wars where humans had shaken the stars themselves. On the great world of Threnka, inside the halls of the Galactic Council, the topic came alive again. A council chamber made of glass and steel overlooked the stars, filled with hundreds of alien voices. Some spoke with laughter, others with fear, but all turned to silence when the High Chancellor raised his hand. "We have received a strange signal," the Chancellor said, his voice echoing in every translator. "Device. It comes from the dark edge of the spiral arm, near forgotten space, where humans once lived." A younger officer of the Valeri race scoffed, his 4 arms crossing over his chest. "Humans are myths," he said sharply. "For 5,000 years there has been nothing, not a ship, not a voice, not a trace. If they exist, they are weak, scattered, and irrelevant." But an older admiral of the Cernach turned his cold eyes across the room. "You speak as if you want them to wake," the admiral whispered, his voice heavy with memory. "When I was a child, my grandfather told me of the human wars. He said their fleets were so many they blocked out suns. He said they burned empires. In days, if they return, the stars will burn again." The chamber filled with uneasy silence. For a moment, the counselors looked at one another, wondering if the old legends could be true. Some believed the signal was only background noise, a static of forgotten machines. Others feared it was something else, something alive, something human, far across the stars. On a lonely border outpost, the truth stirred. An alien scout vessel drifted past the ruins of a dead system, its sensors scanning the void. At first, there was nothing but dust and shattered rock. Then, a pulse, a faint signal, steady, ancient. Carrying a simple human code, the alien crew froze as the message translated across their screens. It said, "We are here." The scout captain swallowed. His fear, his scales trembling under his armor. He had heard the tales, just like every child in the galaxy. Tales of human soldiers who fought without fear, who endured pain beyond reason, who refused to surrender even when worlds fell. He did not want to believe it, yet the signal burned clear. Humanity was awake. The news spread like wildfire through the stars, in markets and palaces, in slums and spaceports. The whispers returned. Humans. The Silent Ones. They live, some laughed, dismissing it as a trick. Others began to prepare fleets in secret, afraid of what silence ending would mean on Earth. Hidden under layers of defense and shadow, humanity stirred from its long sleep. For 5,000 years they had remained unseen, rebuilding, watching, learning. They had watched the galaxy tear itself apart in endless wars. They had watched the council grow arrogant, ruling as if no one could challenge them. And they had waited, patient as stone. Now the waiting was over. In the depths of Sol, an ancient warship opened its eyes. Metal groaned as engines lit for the first time in millennia. Its black hull reflected. No light, its surface etched with scars of battles older than most empires. The ship was called the Revenant, and when its core burned alive again, the void trembled. Back in the council chamber, alarms flared as sensor stations across sectors reported strange readings. Something massive had moved in the dark. Something with human design. Panic touched the edges of the counselors' minds. The young Valari officer laughed, but his voice cracked with unease. Even if humans exist, they are only one world, one people. They cannot fight the galaxy. But the old admiral shook his head slowly. "You do not understand. They are not one world, not one people. They are a storm that waits until the sky is quiet, then falls without mercy. The signal from the Revenant reached the council's screens. A human face appeared, stern, scarred, silent for a long moment. Then a voice, calm but heavy, spoke across the stars. For 5,000 years, we gave you silence. For 5,000 years, we chose peace, but you knock on our door with fleets. You whisper our name in fear. You want us awake, and so we are awake. The feed cut, the chamber fell silent, colder than the void outside. Every counselor knew the truth. The Silent Ones had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The forgotten legacy, the galaxy could not ignore the message. Markets, stations, and colonies echoed with a single word: humans. The Silent Ones had returned, and no one knew if it meant survival or destruction in the halls of the Galactic Council. Arguments raged. Some demanded fleets be sent at once to crush Earth before it grew stronger. Others whispered caution. Fearing the stories their ancestors once told, the High Chancellor leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "We will confirm the truth," he declared, "and if humanity lives, we will decide what must be done." So the Council dispatched an expedition fleet, not for war, but for investigation. At its heart was the scout cruiser Trulcan Dawn, captained by Cerise Kor, a young officer eager to prove himself. Cerise had no patience for old legends. He believed humans were only a relic, if they existed at all. To him, this mission was nothing more than glory waiting to be seized. The Trulcan Dawn entered a region of dead stars, where ancient ruins floated like ghosts in the dark. The scanners, lit up with strange signals energy pulses, unlike any known design. At first, Cerise dismissed them as background noise, but then his science officer cried out, "Captain, we found something." Before them drifted an outpost, silent and vast, built into the shell of a hollowed asteroid. Its design was old, so old that none of the officers could place it, but its lines, its angles, carried the mark of humanity. The crew watched in awe as they approached. Ancient banners still clung to the walls, half burned by time. But the symbols were clear: an eagle with outstretched wings, a star between its talons. Cerise ordered a boarding party. They stepped into the cold halls, where dust floated like frozen breath. Every corridor whispered of a people who had walked there long ago. Weapons, shattered armor, and strange machines lay scattered, untouched for thousands of years. It was a tomb, but not a forgotten one. In the command chamber, they found a console still alive. Dim lights flickered. And then a voice, human, distorted by age, but strong enough to freeze every alien heart. "If you hear this," it said, "know that we chose silence, not defeat. We left the galaxy to heal, to forget, but we never vanished, we never surrendered. We are watching, we are waiting." The message ended, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the void itself. Cerise felt his throat dry, yet pride pushed him forward. "These are the remnants of a broken people," he declared to his crew. "Legends to scare children, nothing more. The council will laugh when they hear of this." But deep inside, he could not shake the unease. The weapons lying in those halls were not like anything he had seen. Their design was precise, brutal, efficient. And if humans had built these 5,000 years ago, what had they built since? The expedition fleet carried its findings back to the council. Historians rushed to study the symbols, the machines, the recordings. They discovered records buried deep in their archives, records long ignored. They spoke of a time called the Silent War, a war so brutal the council had erased it from common memory. It told of human fleets that moved faster than light, of weapons that cracked moons, of soldiers who fought until their last breath with no retreat. The council had chosen silence because memory itself was too dangerous. Now that silence was broken across the galaxy, empires began to prepare. Some built weapons in secret, others sent spies to learn what humans had become. And some, the oldest and wisest, began to pray. Meanwhile, in the Sol system, humanity stirred with purpose. On the surface of Mars, cities rose under protective domes, filled with voices speaking after centuries of quiet. On the moons of Jupiter, factories awoke, their forges breathing fire as war machines were born. And in the depths of Saturn's rings, hidden supercarriers, powered on, each one larger than cities, their shadows stretching like knives across the stars. The leader of humanity, a woman named Admiral Shalaine Ardent, stood before her people. Her voice rang through the halls of command. For 5,000 years we watched in silence. We saw the galaxy mock us, forget us, and call us myths. But now they knock at our gates. They think us weak, broken, gone. They are wrong. We endured in silence so that when the day came, we would rise stronger than before. And that day is here. Her words traveled across human space. Soldiers saluted, workers cheered, ships answered with roaring engines. The silence had ended, and with it, the galaxy's fragile peace. Back in the council chamber, fear spread faster than fire. The younger races wanted war before humanity could grow too strong. The elder races urged restraint, whispering that to wait the storm fully would doom them all. But as they argued, new reports flooded in. Human ships had been sighted, ships that dwarfed fleets, ships whose weapons could bend the laws of physics. The High Chancellor gripped the table, his voice low. The legends were true, he whispered. The Silent Ones have returned. And as he spoke, somewhere far beyond, a second human warship lit its engines. Its name carved in iron across its hull. The eternal vow. It sent no message. It made no threat. It simply turned its course toward the heart of the galaxy. The silence was over, and the legacy of humanity was about to be remembered. Asterisk the first confrontation. The galaxy did not wait. Fear turned into action, and action into warships. A council could no longer ignore the truth. Humanity was awake, and their silence had ended. So they gathered fleets, hundreds of them, built from dozens of alien empires. Together, they believed no force could stand against them, not even the legends of old. The fleet was commanded by High Marshal Vayer of the Zoroth Dominion, a proud warrior. His voice thundered across the cone channels as he addressed the armada. Today we end the myth of humans. Today we remind the stars who rules the galaxy. We will strike before they grow strong, and we will erase their name from memory. But his words did not erase the fear whispering in the hearts of his captains, for many remembered the ancient stories, even if they pretended not to believe, stories of humans who fought until nothing remained but fire and ash, stories of soldiers who smiled at death and ships that turned suns into shadows. The invasion began at the edges of Sol. The alien fleet entered through the Urt cloud, their ships like a swarm of locusts across the dark. But waiting in that silence was a single human warship, the Revenant, the ship that had already awakened. It moved without sound, a black shadow against the stars. At first, the invaders laughed. One ship against thousands. They charged with plasma cannons and beam weapons, filling the void with fire. But the Revenant did not move to fight. It moved to end. Its hull glowed faintly, and then gravity itself twisted. Alien ships shattered as invisible hands crushed them like paper. Others were pulled into each other, colliding and breaking apart in blinding fire. In moments, dozens of ships were gone, destroyed without a single human shot fired. Panic spread through the fleet. Impossible, cried one alien commander. What weapon is this? Shouted another. But the truth was clear: humanity had returned with technology beyond understanding. The Council fleet tried to regroup, but the Revenant was everywhere. It slipped between them, bending space, cutting formations apart. Every time the aliens thought they had trapped it, they found themselves trapped instead. High Marshal Vayer roared in fury. All ships, focus fire. Crush it, now. Thousands of weapons fired at once, light brighter than suns filling the dark. For a moment, the void itself seemed to break, but when the light faded, the revenant was still there, untouched, silent, watching. Then came the human voice, broadcast. Across every ship in the invasion fleet, it was Admiral Shalane Ardent, her words sharp as steel. You came to our home. You came with fire and arrogance. We gave you silence for 5,000 years, and this is how you repay us. Hear me well. We did not want war, but you have chosen it. And now we will show you why your ancestors feared us. The alien crews trembled as her words sank in. Some tried to flee, but the revenant caught them with its gravity wells, pulling them back into the slaughter. Others fought on with desperation, knowing retreat would bring shame. But shame was nothing compared to the horror before them. Within minutes, half the fleet was gone. Ships that had taken centuries to build were now wreckage drifting across the stars. Alien survivors screamed across comms, begging for orders, begging for mercy. But no mercy came. Finally, the Revenant stopped its attack. It could have destroyed them all, but it didn't. Instead, it sent a message across the galaxy, broadcast. On every channel, a human face appeared once more, scarred, calm, unshaken. For 5,000 years we waited, and now you came to us with weapons. This was your first and only warning. Leave us be, or the silence will end in fire. The broadcast ended, and the alien fleet drifted broken, humiliated, terrified of the thousands who came. Only a fraction survived. They limped back to council space, their ships scarred, their pride shattered, their voices filled with fear. The galaxy erupted. News of the defeat spread like wildfire. Some called it impossible. Others claimed it was a trick, but the truth was undeniable. Humanity had crushed a united fleet without effort. The legend was real, and worse, it was alive. In the chambers of the council, chaos reigned. The young Valari officer, who once mocked the stories, sat in silence now, his skin pale. The elder admiral of the Cernic spoke once more, his voice heavy. With dread, I warned you, he said. They are not one world. They are a storm. And now the storm is awake. Far away, on Mars, Admiral Ardent stood at the command center, her eyes cold as she looked upon the reports of the battle. Let them come again, she whispered to her officers. Let them test our silence once more, and we will show them what it means to awaken humanity. Behind her, more human fleets stirred. Ships that had not seen light in thousands of years powered on. Engines burned, weapons armed, shadows moved across the void. The galaxy thought the first confrontation was the end. But for humanity, it was only the beginning. Asterisk echoes. Of ancient wars the Council had seen defeat. They had watched their mighty fleets scatter like dust before a single human warship. But instead of peace, the humiliation only fed their fear. If one ship could do this, what would happen if all of humanity awoke? In secret halls of archives buried under stone, alien historians opened old records sealed for millennia. Forbidden by decree, they whispered of a war never spoken aloud, the Silent War. It had happened 5,000 years ago, when humanity still walked openly among the stars. It was a war so brutal that even victors swore never to speak of it again. The records told of fleets without number, of human weapons that tore space itself and left entire systems burning, of battles where humans fought until only ruins remained. The galaxy had begged for silence, and humanity had granted it, stepping back, retreating into shadows, watching, waiting. Now that silence was broken, across worlds, whispers grew into panic. Merchants closed their markets when rumors spread of human fleets moving unseen. Governments argued whether to ally or resist, and common citizens prayed the Silent Ones would never come to their skies. Meanwhile, on the frontier, alien spies risked their lives to gather proof. One spy ship, cloaked in shadows, slipped past. The defenses of Saturn's rings. They watched in horror as colossal shapes emerged from the ice and stone. Human supercarriers, bigger than cities, rose slowly into the light, each one pulsed with energy too vast for alien minds to understand. Spy crew trembled as they recorded. "What kind of machines are these?" Whispered the pilot. "They are not machines," the captain replied softly. "They are hammers, and the galaxy is the anvil." Before they could escape, a human patrol ship caught them. It did not destroy them, but forced them to carry a message back. "Tell your masters," the human said. "This is only the beginning." The council grew desperate. Some demanded immediate attack, to strike before humanity's fleets multiplied. Others urged diplomacy, fearing that war would only awaken worse horrors. But every voice fell silent when more reports arrived. From the far reaches of space, hidden human colonies had begun to stir. Systems thought dead now glowed with life. Ships that had slept for thousands of years answered the call of Sol. High Marshal Vare, his pride broken but his hatred alive, stood before the council. "We must unite," he roared, "or we will fall one by one. Humanity does not forgive. They do not forget. If we allow them to rise, there will be no galaxy left for us." But the elder admiral of the Cernach shook his head. "You do not understand. They were never gone. They were never weak. They were waiting, as they always do, waiting until the galaxy was ripe for war." Back on Earth, Admiral Chelane Ardent stood with her commanders in the war chamber. Maps of stars stretched before them, dotted with red where alien fleets had gathered. "Our enemies are afraid," she said, her voice calm. "They will strike again. They will never stop, and when they come, we will not answer with silence. We will answer with fire." Her words filled her officers with iron resolve, for they knew the time of hiding was over. But in the quiet of her own thoughts, Chelane remembered the truth the galaxy had forgotten. Humanity's silence was not only exile, it was punishment. 5,000 years ago, humans had unleashed weapons so terrible that even they swore never to use them again. They had locked those weapons away, deep within hidden vaults, buried under forbidden stars. And now, with war returning, those vaults stirred once more across distant systems. Machines long dormant opened their eyes. Titans of war built in an age when humanity feared nothing. Some called them planet killers. Others called them the chains of heaven. No one truly knew what they were capable of, but the very act of awakening them sent ripples through the void, and ancient guardians, hidden eyes that had slept for 5,000 years, whispered their first words again. Orders received, humanity rises. The galaxy did not yet see them, but the echoes of ancient wars had begun to stir, and every alien leader felt it in their bones that the true war had not yet begun. Asterisk. The call to arms the galaxy waited in fear. Every world, every system, every station spoke of the same thing: humans. For weeks, the council argued. Leaders shouted, fleets gathered, but no one dared strike again. They had seen what one human warship could do, and now whispers spread of entire fleets awakening. Then it happened. Humanity broke the silence not with a weapon, but with words. On every channel, across every screen, the broadcast appeared. The symbol of Earth burned bright, an eagle clutching a star. And then the face of Admiral Chelane Ardent filled the void, calm and unshaken. For 5,000 years we gave the galaxy silence, she began, her voice steady as iron. We watched you fight your wars, enslave the weak, devour each other in greed. We hoped you would learn, we hoped you would grow. But now you come to our home with fleets and threats. You test our silence, so we answer. Her eyes narrowed, and her words cut deeper than any weapon. We do not seek to rule, we do not seek to conquer, but make no mistake, if you bring war to us, we will finish it. If you bring fire, we will burn brighter And if you think humanity has grown weaker in silence, you will learn what we truly became. The message spread like wildfire. On frontier colonies, aliens gathered in silence, staring at the broadcast. On council worlds, leaders trembled, knowing the galaxy had just changed. And in the slums and broken cities of weaker races, hope sparked for the first time in generations. For if humans rose again, maybe someone could stand against the cruel dominions of the galaxy. But not all heard the words as warning. In the shadows of the council chamber, High Marshal Vayer sneered. "They speak as if they are gods," he growled. "They speak of mercy, but I see only arrogance. If we bow now, the galaxy belongs to them. No, we strike before they rise too far." Many nodded in fear, others in hatred, and so plans of another invasion began to form. Meanwhile, in Sol, the human war machine roared to life. On the shipyards of Mars, massive carriers took shape. On the icy plains of Europa, soldiers trained with weapons never seen before. On the farthest edges of Pluto, hidden vaults cracked, open, revealing machines so vast they blotted out the stars. Humanity was not just preparing for war, they were calling their children, their colonies, their hidden worlds back to the banner of Earth. Admiral Arden stood before her people once more. She raised her hand, and the chamber filled with silence. "Children of Earth," she said, "for 5,000 years we hid, we waited, we endured. Now the galaxy comes for us. Now they threaten to erase us. Will we bow? Will we stay silent?" Her voice thundered. "No, we rise, we march, we fight, and this time we will not fade into legend. This time the galaxy will remember us forever." The crowd erupted. Soldiers slammed their fists against armor. Workers roared in unity. Pilots saluted as engines screamed to life. The call to arms had begun, and humanity answered with fire in their hearts. Across the galaxy, fear and chaos spread. Alien rulers tried to silence the broadcast, but it was too late. Even their own people whispered in awe. "If humans fight for themselves, maybe they will fight for us too." Rebellion stirred in corners of the galaxy long oppressed. Slaves looked to the stars with hope, waiting for the silent ones to come. In the dark, the spy networks worked faster. One spy managed to steal fragments of human transmissions. What he saw chilled his blood. Dozens of fleets, each one larger than anything the galaxy had ever built. And something else, something hidden deeper. Massive engines sleeping under black vaults. Machines so powerful their energy signatures rattled his sensors. He fled with the data. But he knew the truth: humanity had not just prepared for survival. They had prepared for dominance. The council called an emergency session. Voices roared. Arguments clashed. Threats filled the air. Some demanded peace talks. Others screamed for war. But the oldest of them all, the Cernic admiral, whispered above the noise, "Do you not see? The call to arms is not for us. It is for them. They are uniting. Their silence is gone. And now the storm will come." And far beyond, on the edge of the Milky Way, a shadow moved. A second human fleet emerged from hidden space. Their ships ancient but alive. The fleet did not broadcast, did not speak. They only formed into perfect formation and waited. The call to arms had reached them, and they had answered. The war unleashed. The council could no longer wait. Fear had grown too deep, whispers too loud, rebellions too many. If they allowed humanity to rise unchecked, every empire would fall. So they gathered the largest armada the galaxy had ever seen. Thousands of ships from every corner of the stars. A storm of fire forged from desperation. The invasion began at the edges of Sol. Alien fleets moved like a tide, swallowing the void in endless waves. Every ship carried weapons designed to shatter worlds. Every commander believed that numbers alone would crush the silent ones. But in their hearts, fear still whispered. What if the legends were true? On Mars, alarm screamed. Admiral Chelene Ardent stood at the war table, her eyes sharp as blades. "They come," her officers reported. "Thousands of ships, perhaps the whole galaxy." Ardent's voice was steady, without fear. "And let the galaxy see what silence has built," she said. The human fleets rose from their hidden vaults. Colossal carriers surged from Saturn's rings. Warships drifted out of Neptune's shadows, their hulls glowing with weapons older than memory. And then the Titans awoke, the ancient engines known as Eclipse, machines so vast they blotted out stars, their presence alone making alien crews tremble. The battle began in silence. The alien armada unleashed its fury. Suns of plasma fire streaked across the void, entire squadrons diving toward Earth's defenses. For a moment, the stars themselves seemed to burn. But humanity did not scatter. Humanity did not flee. Instead, the Revenant moved first, its gravity. Weapons tore apart enemy formations, dragging hundreds of ships into deadly collisions. Then the human carriers opened. From their hulls poured thousands of strike craft, silent shadows that cut through alien ships like knives through paper. The galaxy had prepared for war, but not for this. Human weapons bent space, folded light, shattered shields as if they were nothing. Every alien commander screamed orders. But their fleets broke under the storm. The Eclipse engines moved at last. Their weapons were not like cannons, not like missiles. They were gravity storms, tearing apart ships without leaving wreckage. They were beams of pure darkness that erased fleets in a single sweep. One alien admiral cried out in horror, "They are not fighting us. They are ending us." High Marshal Vare led the charge. His flagship, armed with the strongest weapons of the Dominion, dove into the heart of the human line. He fired until his cannons burned red, his shields collapsing, his crew screaming, but the eternal vow, another human dreadnought, turned its guns upon him. One shot, one beam of silent light, and Vare's ship was gone. His fleet scattered without its leader. In less than a day, the largest fleet in history lay broken. Wreckage drifted through the void, bodies floating among shattered hulls. Survivors fled in panic, their Kung channels filled with screams, and across the galaxy, the truth spread. Humanity was unstoppable. The Silent Ones had not just returned, they had returned stronger than ever. But even in victory, Admiral Ardent's voice carried no joy. She stood before her officers, her face carved from stone. "This is only the beginning," she said. "The Council will not stop. They will send more. They will never accept our silence, so we will show them. If they want war, we will give them war." Her words spread across human space. Soldiers cheered, workers raised their tools, colonies lit their banners. The age of hiding was gone. The age of war had begun. Across the Council worlds, despair grew. Some leaders called for surrender. Others swore to fight to the last. But all of them knew one truth: humanity had changed the balance of the galaxy. Forever, the echoes of 5,000 years of silence had become thunder, and that thunder would not stop until the galaxy knelt or burned. In the dark, far from Sol, alien prophets whispered in terror. "The storm is awake," they said, "and it will not rest." The choice of humanity, the galaxy was broken. The greatest armada in history lay scattered among the stars. Worlds once proud trembled in silence. And the name of humanity, once thought a myth, now thundered across every system. But victory brought no peace, for now the galaxy waited in fear, wondering what the Silent Ones would do. Would they conquer? Would they burn? Would they erase every empire as punishment for their arrogance? Or would they vanish again into the shadows? In the war chamber of Sol, Admiral Chelene Ardent stood before her commanders. The room was silent, lit only by the glow of maps showing broken fleets and burning worlds. Her eyes were hard, but her voice was steady. "The galaxy has tested our silence," she said, "and now the galaxy bows. But the question remains, do we answer with mercy or with fire? Her generals spoke with fire in their blood. Strike them down, one shouted. They will never stop unless we end them. Conquer their worlds, another demanded. Let humanity rule, so this will never happen again. But others, quieter, spoke of another path. 5,000 years ago, we chose silence because our own fury nearly destroyed us. Will we repeat the same mistake? Arden's gaze turned toward the Black Vault records, the logs of the silent war, the reason humanity vanished from the earth. Stars, she remembered the words of her ancestors. We chose silence, not because we were weak, but because we were too strong. Across the galaxy, alien leaders trembled. Messages poured into Saul, some begging for peace, some offering tribute, others swearing vengeance if humanity struck again. The council itself was broken, half of its members calling for surrender, the other half vowing to rebuild. But all of them feared one thing, that humanity's silence was gone forever. The decision came not in battle, but in words. Humanity sent one final broadcast, carried on every channel, across every corner of the galaxy. Admiral Arden stood before the stars, her face carved with scars, her voice steady. For 5,000 years we gave you peace. We gave you silence. We watched while you rose and fell. And when you came to our home with fire, we answered. She paused, her eyes piercing through the void. Now we offer you a choice. Stand down, live beside us, and accept peace, or rise against us again, and see your stars burn. The words struck harder than any weapon. On countless worlds, rulers trembled. On frontier colonies, people cheered. And in the shadows of rebellion, the weak raised their heads with new hope. For if the silent ones offered peace, maybe there was still a future. But humanity's warning was clear: defy them, and there would be no mercy. The galaxy listened, because it had no other choice. In the council chamber, the young Valari officer sat in silence, his pride gone, his voice broken. They are gods, he whispered, and we are nothing. But the elder Cernok admiral shook his head slowly. No, they are not gods, they are human, and that is worse. Far beyond, the human fleets began to return to their stations. The Eclipse engines powered down, their shadows fading back into the void. The colossal dreadnoughts drifted into silence once more. But the galaxy knew they were not gone, only waiting. And humanity's silence would never mean weakness again on Earth. People gathered under the skies for the first time in centuries, without fear. Children played, soldiers rested, families wept in relief. For though war still lingered, they knew they had risen stronger, and their silence had turned into a voice the galaxy could never ignore. Admiral Arden stood alone on the deck of the Revenant. She watched the stars stretch before her, countless worlds trembling under her gaze, and she whispered words that only her ship could hear. We were silent for 5,000 years, but never again. The galaxy has awakened us, and now it will never forget. The void stretched silent once more, but it was not the silence of weakness. It was the silence of power, the silence of humanity. Asterisk.